Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers.
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
And the millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. I am joined here by Steve Monk. Steve, thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So I'll do a quick little bio. I love the bio when you send it over. Everyone sends different bios, but yours interesting. So failed engineer, failed lawyer, business owner, operator, and founder of CEO Law and CEO Law Technology. So it's not often that people start out with their failures, but everyone has them. Everyone's been there. Why don't I usually do a choose your own adventure kind of start, but I'm going to go, why don't you tell us, here's your choose your own adventure. Tell us tell us the biggest failure in business or in life. Here you can choose. Biggest failure in business, biggest failure in life.
Okay, well, I'll pick business. And like I say that I am a failed engineer and a failed lawyer. And truthfully, I do think that, you learn a lot from your failures, maybe more than you ever learn from your successes. And so for me, I went to Queen's University, became an engineer, got a great job for Lockheed in Ottawa, which was exactly what I wanted. And then when I started working there, I realized there were other people who were far more interested and far better at engineering than I ever was. Okay. And so, from a school perspective, I was good at calculus, and that's why I did well in engineering. But calculus is not something that you then use when you're actually an engineer. And so I was kind of lost. And we had co-op students who came from Waterloo, and I met this guy, Neil Schellenberger. And one weekend he was leaving with a chip catalog. And chip catalogs are these books that have all of the information in them about chips. And I asked him, like, Neil, what are you doing with that book? And he said, oh, don't worry, I'll bring it back. And I was like, listen, I'm not worried about you bringing it back. I'm just curious, like, what are you doing with that? And it turned out that he was taking it home because he was building a circuit board and he wanted to do research on the weekend to figure out the best chips that he could use in his circuit board. And I was jumping in a car to head back to Kingston to party with my buddies. And I just thought, this guy's an engineer, so I should leave the engineering to him. And
right.
So,
and just so we're not talking about Frito-Lays or Doritos for the chips. All those people out there. We're talking microchips, right? To build out a circuit board.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
That's right. So you could say I was, I failed as an engineer, but I would say that's okay because I learned that other people were better at it than me and more interested. So leave it to them.
Yeah.
And I'll go do something else.
Interesting. So it's sort of like, I'm going to be very honest. Calculus was probably one of my worst courses. I was actually good at math, surprisingly, to most. I was really good at math, and it was the reason I enjoyed all math. So calculus, algebra, and obviously prior to that, sort of just your generic math, right, in grades 9 through 11. But it was always the subject where there was only, at least in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong on this, and it could be because I'm wrong a lot. There was only one right answer. It was either right or it was wrong, right? So if you knew how to get to that right answer, you knew how. So I was always, my impression with math was like, if I went into an exam, I was either going to get 30% because I knew a little bit, or 100% because I actually studied. There was really no I'm going to get 72%. It's like, well, you didn't really study because you don't know everything, right? You don't know the sort of underlying concepts. But anyways, that's my thought. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is it an all or nothing type of
Yes, I would
course?
agree that I think things like English, it's easy to get a passing grade, but hard to get a great grade.
Right.
And with math, I would say, you can get 0 or 100 because you either understand the math or you don't. So I think that's why a lot of people like it, because they feel like, they can get the right answer.
There's a definitive yes or no, right? Like there's no oh, she gave me a C on my English paper. It's like, because she didn't understand where I was going with it or whatever, right? But
yeah, so the challenge for me was I could get the right answer on the piece of paper.
Right.
But then when somebody asked me to actually apply that math in an engineering environment,
Right.
I was kind of lost.
Okay.
I couldn't quite figure out how does this apply to the real world. So
interesting. Okay, so failed engineer, obviously didn't have the passion there. Take us through, I guess, the next step. Law school? Is that like, where does law school fit in this?
Yeah. So after I did engineering school and worked as an engineer, then I decided, okay, I should do something else. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, so I went to law school and I did an MBA at the same time.
Okay.
And then again, I did pretty well in law school, and I got a job at Davies Ward & Beck, which is one of the largest law firms in Canada.
Okay.
And there are 7 firms in Canada said to be the best ones, the Seven Sisters, and it's one of them. So it was a great firm, and I got in there and I started working. And again, I just did not like it. And I felt there were other people who were more interested in it than I was. And so, and my wife, actually, she's from Lithuania, and she came to Canada and she saw what I was doing and she said, you got to quit that job. And I found that to be kind of an intriguing suggestion, because I had worked pretty hard to get that job. And then I realized, you're right, like I hate this job. And so I quit and went into business, and yeah, that was much better for me.
The rest is smooth sailing.
Failure, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots to learn from deciding what you don't like, and then hopefully you find something you do like, which I did with business.
Right. Interesting. So, sorry, where did you say you did your law school MBA? Queens?
Well, I started out at University of Victoria, and then I transferred to Western. So I went to Ivy Business School at Western and Western Law.
Interesting. UVic. Victoria is a nice place out there. I looked at doing an MBA out there as well. It's great. From sort of what the newlywed, nearly dead is what they say about the city. It's sort of the two ends of the spectrum, but
yeah,
nice
that's right.
there.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I totally agree. A beautiful place, and like a totally different part of Canada. So I come from Ontario, and I think BC is completely different, and people are more, more grounded in the environment and things like that. So I really loved it out there. I did like it. Yeah. But I decided to come back because the business program at Western was a better one, and so I was interested in that.
And then obviously the law school aspect as well, right? So
interesting.
So I mean, many people. You take this however you want. Hopefully, take it the right way. It's meant in the right way. Many people would think getting an engineering degree and then getting an MBA and a law degree are not failures. Maybe wrong paths, right? Maybe wrong paths. Maybe you wasted time, and I don't mean that. That might be, but I mean, you have a engineering degree and a law degree and an MBA, right? I mean, that to many people that's successful, right? It's interesting that you would classify those as failures. Maybe wastes of time, or maybe time spent where maybe it could be, but I think it wasn't a waste of time because you figured out what you didn't want to do, right? It's sort of like by deduction, right? Figuring it out by deduction, whatever that I'm the worst with the metaphors or the one-liners, but anyways.
Well, I do think when you call something a failure, it's a chance to learn something.
Right.
And so having done those things, I think I learned that was not for me. Yeah. And so that gave me a chance to try something different. If you want a more classic failure, one of the jobs I had once I started working in business was with a startup, or I call it a startup, but it wasn't really. But it was at the time, it was in the internet boom. And so I kind of classified it as a startup. And I had worked in very large companies. So this company was called CyberSurf, and it was a public company in Alberta. And the notion was that we were offering free internet. So it was dial-up internet at the time. And so our plan was to give people access to free internet. And then we had a proprietary technology where we could show advertisements on the screen. And they were kind of television style advertisements, which was a big deal back in dial-up internet days. And when I joined the company, we had just raised $40 million. So we had $40 million, and I was in this public company, and we were going to do these great things. And we actually managed to get 600,000 customers across Canada through some partnerships that I would have thought were impossible. But at the end, we just couldn't monetize the business. And so although we had these grand plans and we got 600,000 customers and we got some great partnerships, we couldn't get the advertisers to come on. And so we kind of gradually worked through our $40 million, and we
Oh,
didn't have
depending
any
on your burn
revenue.
rate, right? That's depend, like how long was that burn rate? What,
Well, it was at the time,
or what was
because
the
we were
burn rate
doing
there?
internet and it's
Yeah.
expensive to provide that to people, we burned through the money reasonably quickly.
Yeah,
And I would say, maybe it lasted, 3-4 years, but we were probably burning about $1 million a month,
wow,
which is, in this day and age, that's a crazy amount.
yeah,
At the time, it was kind of, I thought that it was reasonable because I had worked at giant companies.
right,
And anyways, we didn't manage to make it happen. And so that's, what everyone would say, I think, that's a failure. You had $40 million and you couldn't turn it into a viable business.
right,
But again, I'd say, you learn from that and you move on. And I think entrepreneurs are used to giving it their all. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that you don't have a great idea. Like I continue to believe that's a great idea.
yeah,
Like if you could take that into cell phones today and you could say to people, we'll pay for your cell phone, but we're going to be able to, send you ads. I think a lot of people would say that's super compelling, and you'd find people who would be interested in supporting that model. Anyway,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't work.
Interesting. I actually have another. I sort of was previous episode. We're talking about blockchain. I sort of came up with an idea around free internet, using kind of like a mesh network technology, with sort of the 5G, the Internet of Things, sort of like where you've got nodes everywhere on kind of a blockchain. So every node would get free internet, from a centralized pillar, probably funded by a corporate sponsor. And then it'd be interesting to be able to push ads to those people, to kind of anyways, probably maybe a conversation we could have at some time. But
Yeah. For sure.
so okay, so talk about, so obviously you've invested, you're angel investor with York Angels. I think we may have met at one of those events. I think at out at was it Durham College or one of those events through JP Jeffrey Potvins. Do you
Yeah.
ever get to any of his events?
Yeah, I have been to a number of his. They're kind of intriguing, that's for sure. It's nice pitch it events, right?
Pitch it. That's
it's-
I was a
it's
loss for words
interesting
there.
to see people
Yeah.
jump up and do their pitch, and I think
Yes.
it's great for the entrepreneurs because they get to, they get to practice their pitch.
Bit of
And it gets
exposure.
better, and I've seen the same companies pitch on multiple occasions, and so yeah, I think that's an intriguing event, and yeah, maybe we did meet at one of those.
Yeah, definitely, and that's probably how we connected. So you're also then CEO. Sorry, well, I guess you are CEO, but CEO of CEO Law, founder and CEO of CEO Law. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you into that side? And you've been doing that now for what, 2-3 years?
We started in
take?
2017, so
Okay.
we're in our 4th calendar year, I say. We're really
Okay.
about 3 years old, but I say 4th calendar year because that sounds longer. Yeah, so CEO Law is a law firm that's built on the idea that the way legal is done today is broken, and so it should be fixed. And the way we want to fix it is by giving companies access to very senior lawyers who worked in places like the one I worked at, very well-known law firms. So you get access to someone senior who's worked in a big firm like that. So they've got the background around how do you support companies. And then ideally they've worked in a company themselves. And that's because I believe that in order to properly support companies, you should have worked in one yourself. And I say that having been at Davies Ward & Beck, that most of the lawyers in a place like that have never worked a day in their lives in a company. And so they've had
I thought you were going to end the sentence there. Never worked a day in their lives, period, right?
Yeah, in a company.
In a company.
They've had a great legal
experience. I could edit that. You'll be like, they'll come back. Be like, what did you say about us?
And so I think, like I say to people, that they can't relate to normal people because they haven't really had a normal life. They've had a great legal experience, but they haven't really had a normal life. So we look for lawyers who have been in a company, and so they understand people in a company better. And then instead of being $1,000 an hour, which our lawyers would have been when they were on Bay Street, we're $200 or $250. And so the idea there is to give access to great lawyers, but at a high value point. And I say that's the best value that you'll find anywhere. And then we've got some unique technology to make the experience a better one. And we've got a real commitment to exceeding people's expectations and doing better. Typically when I talk to people, the first thing they say is, I don't believe you. And then the second thing they say is, we already have lawyers. And so we have to work really hard to say, give us a chance and we'll exceed your expectations. And yeah, most fundamentally, I think entrepreneurs today, you've got 4 options for what you'll do for legal support. You can go to a big firm, and I say that's terrible because they really don't even want your business, and it will be way too expensive, and you'll end up getting a junior lawyer who probably doesn't really know what they're doing.
Right.
You can go down the street, and I say that's probably a bad idea because you'll still pay way too much, and the person may not have the expertise that you really need. So if they're doing house closings and divorces and criminal charges, and then they also do some business on the side.
It's kind of like a mishmash, right? Their
Yeah.
expertise
So they may not really
yeah.
be able to help you the way you really need.
Right.
You can do it yourself, which I say is probably not a good idea because I've seen it many times that people do things incorrectly and then they get into trouble later on, or you can not do it. And I would say that not doing it is probably the most popular option. And I think it's because there's no good option for companies. Like
Right.
legal is too expensive and it's hard for them to find great talent. And, there's a lot of things that get in the way. And so we're trying to break that down and give companies access to a great lawyer at a great price.
Interesting. So, I mean, we should talk because we're building up a network of what we call service providers to work with our issuers that are going through the Backers platform, launching campaigns. Love, obviously legal, everything you just mentioned is 100% true. I mean, a lot of people come to us for a lot of different reasons. Hey, we need help with this. Legal is often one of them, from as simple as incorporating, getting your bylaws and all of that sort of sorted out, your articles, all the way through to, corporate structure, shareholder agreements, things of that nature. And then, everything that's involved, right? Around starting a business. So, like you said, there's the super expensive. They don't care. They're probably not even going to answer your call, or they're going to bump you down to their law clerk. No offense against law clerks, who's probably also dealing with divorces. And then you've got the down the street, as you said, they're and it's sort of like that tier. And then a large percentage of people either do it themselves or don't do it. So definitely we should bring you in on that. That's interesting. I'd love to. Maybe work on a couple of projects and we can maybe showcase. I think this would be interesting. Do almost like a what do you call it? A reality show where we bring in, the doubter, the naysayer company, or, a couple different versions, have them, sort of walk through a day in the life with CEO Law, and then, kind of give their experience and maybe have the same person go through a similar experience with someone else and kind of give like a comparatives, right? Or like a comparable. That'd be interesting. We should do that. You ready for a reality show?
You bet. Always ready.
Yeah.
And I do think, that's where the proof really comes out, when people have the actual experience. And when you talk about, starting companies that are trying to get crowdfunding through something like Backers, there's a lot of things where they need some support to make that happen.
Oh, definitely.
And it starts with incorporation. And so there I've seen it done incorrectly, and you have to get it done properly. And then you have to get properly organized so that, you've got your minute books in shape, because when you try and get funding, they're going to want to see that.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned shareholders agreements, and that's a great example of things that a thing that is often not done. And then you see companies come unraveled and they've got major issues because they didn't get a proper shareholders agreement in place before things unraveled.
Right.
And then there are things like proper employment agreements and proper contractor agreements.
All the agreements for sure.
Protecting your intellectual property. And then when you go to get funding,
trademarks,
people will say, have you protected your IP? And if you haven't, they'll say, well, we can't fund you because we're investing in your idea and your intellectual property. And if you haven't properly locked it up, then we can't invest. And so, it may not impact at the crowdfunding stage, although it may, but it will definitely impact when you get to your Series A or your Series B, because people are going to say, we need to see that you've got everything properly done.
Yeah.
So you might as well get it properly done from the outset.
Right from the outset. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I actually watched a video of a guy down sort of Silicon Valley, sort of the precursor to all of this, kind of the investment space that's happening now. And he was talking about like the 3 words he said: better, faster, cheaper, right? Like you've got to be, if you want to scale, you pretty much have to be at least one of those three, if not all three. I mean, not all apply to every business, but like, you know, and better is a very vague term, but like better as in, like you said, you know, whether it's customer service, whether it's, you know, the expertise of the, you know, the lawyers, or, you know, sort of all the different better components, the technology component, you know, faster, maybe not applicable, and then cheaper. I wonder for you, I have two comments. Again, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. So I don't wanna, this is not meant to, but I feel like, again, you gave up law, but you started your own law firm. Is it just you didn't want to listen to other lawyers, or is there that there was that much broken in the system that starting your own firm, with obviously the focus on entrepreneurs, or sort of that niche of the market where, you know, you can be better, I don't know about faster, but cheaper, right? Like how do you attract lawyers who want to make $1,000 an hour billable to only make 200? There's a lot of questions, so hopefully it doesn't. And I mean that with all due respect. You didn't like law, but you started a law firm.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at it that way?
Well, within the practice of law, like within CEO law,
Right.
I don't practice law myself.
Okay, I get it.
Business.
So yes,
Yeah,
you
so
run
it's
the
a
business
dramatically-
aspect. So
yeah,
definitely,
it's a
okay.
different thing. I don't practice law anymore, but I do
Right.
run a business that happens to be focused on the law. And it is, there is this services component that is like a traditional law firm. And then
Right.
there's this tech component that's really built on the idea of scalability.
Okay.
And making it scale using technology. So that's where I'd say it's a bit different. And then in terms of how do we attract lawyers, I will tell you that there are many, many lawyers out there who are, they're disappointed about how their careers are unfolding, and they're disenchanted, and they want to find a better way to practice. And there are many lawyers who they're good at doing the legal work, but they're not good at sales and marketing, and they're not good at the tech side of things, and they're not good at billing and collections and paperwork and all of that. And so
Right.
what they'd really like is a model that would let them just focus on what they like, which is doing the legal work. So in our model, we can deliver the customers and do all the sales and marketing and all of the paperwork, and they can just put their heads down and do the legal work.
Right.
And then yes, they do get the lion's share. They get 65% of what we charge the client. So we charge either 200 or 250. So the lawyers get 65%, and they can make a great living. So some of our lawyers make more than $30,000 in a month working with us. And to my way of thinking, that's a fantastic living. And so, you know, I think that it just shows that there's an opportunity for a win-win-win, where customers get the advantage of a great lawyer at a much better value point.
Right.
The lawyers can make a great living, and we can build a business around it. And that's just, you know, to me, that's all the proof you need.
Yeah.
The system as it is now is ripe for disruption.
Interesting. I was only kidding about you didn't went out of law and started a law firm, but I get it. You're on the business side. I was kidding. But that's interesting. So I don't know how to this is eggshells again, but like, so are that many lawyers disenfranchised or disenchanted with the legal? Not the one you were at. Let's use a different one. Osler. I don't know. Are they one of the sisters?
Yep, they're one of the seven sisters. Yep.
I probably shouldn't say any of these because they're probably gonna go. I didn't say Osler. Some other law firm unknown. Okay.
A big law firm.
A big law firm.
Yeah, big law.
Like, what are they doing to kind of? I mean, obviously, I would assume they're losing lawyers, or lawyers are you know, they're having maybe a difficult time attracting lawyers, or is it because it's that life is so appealing? Maybe the fast cars, the big money, the long hours. You know, is it there's a certain maybe type of person that is attracted there versus maybe you're getting a slightly different type of person? Like, where do you see that divide? I guess.
Yeah, so I do think that the disruption is underway, and so that many of the younger lawyers who may have thought that, you know, law appealed to them and they wanted to get into one of these big firms and that would be a great life, that they're finding it to be unsatisfying, and so they're looking for something different. And you'll hear about lots of lawyers who become entrepreneurs or go and work for startups, or, you know, they try and do something else because they're just no longer willing to work in that model where, you know, you kind of sell your soul.
Right.
And the hope is that someday you get to be a partner and you're going to make the big money. But, you know, it's a ways away. And like CEO law, we're called CEO law because it's an acronym. It stands for customer, employee, owner. And it's because my view is that if you want to build a great company, first make sure you have happy customers.
Right.
And then in order to have happy customers, you need to have happy employees. And then owners come last. Because I believe if you want to have happy owners and build tremendous value in your company, make sure you have happy customers and happy employees. Now that may sound obvious, but I would say big law is exactly the opposite. It's OEC. So owners are first. The partners, everything exists for the benefit of the partners.
Okay.
And then the employees, I say, are grudgingly tolerated. And the lower you are in the totem pole, the more grudgingly you're tolerated.
Really?
So, you know, there's partners, and then there's associates, and then there's articling students, and then there are law clerks, and then there are librarians, and then there's an army of people that are helping out, assistants and photocopy people. And the lower you go in the totem pole, the more you're grudgingly tolerated as kind of an expense item.
Right.
And the customers get a terrible experience. If you're asking me, they pay way too much money and they don't really get the attention of the lawyer they might speak with. You know, it's going to be someone junior. And so that's where I say there's lots of people who will say that's just unsatisfying and I don't want to be part of that. And so they're looking for something better and they would like to be in a model. Truly, I mean, lawyers get a bad rap, but lawyers would like to help people. So they are interested in happy customers. And of course, they're interested in having a good life themselves. But they'd like to work in a model where there's an appreciation for the power of the customer. And that's what's causing the disruption. Because I think more and more people are saying, like, I don't want to be treated like, you know, the law firm's doing me a favor when they charge me $1,000 an hour. I want to be treated like a customer.
Right. Interesting. So let me go on another. How close is the show Suits to the law world?
Well, I always find these models interesting because on something like Suits, like, yeah, they're having all of this drama, which I think
I feel like every episode they're like just trying to like save their law firm or you know,
lots of drama. And then the other thing is that, you know, on top of working 20 hours a day, they're going out to these, you know, fancy restaurants and they're you know, living this nightlife and they're partying, and like you wonder, well, when do you actually sleep? And I think when you work in a law firm like that, you do work the 20-hour days. You don't go out and party afterwards. You try and get, you know, 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and then you're back at the grind again. And it's not dramatic, and it's not really interesting work. It's a lot of grinding, and it's also grinding for, you know, you're answering to the partners who are often kind of unhappy people because their own lives are kind of, you know, not their own. And so it's just not really an environment where you think, I love going to work every day.
Right. It seems, I mean, you're sort of shining a light on something that, you know, it seems like it's kind of ballooned. And obviously, you know, I use the analogy like lawyers have, I always feel this way, and this is maybe from a customer perspective, you know, as an entrepreneur, as, you know, running startups and having dealt with lawyers, it almost feels like they build sort of a level of fear in that if you did it yourself, you're going to screw it up and you're going to owe $1 billion for that mistake, right? It's sort of like, you know, I'm using extremes, right? So it's sort of like you need to use me. I think you kind of alluded to this, where it's like you need me and I'm going to just bill you $800 an hour, $1,000 an hour, because if you don't use me, you're going to screw up and it's going to cost you way more. So it's almost like a bit of a fear tactic, whereas I think there is a place as a part of the overall environment in an organization where, you know, you do want to have contracts and agreements and everything in place, and you want it to be, you know, because no one expect the unexpected. Yes, right. It's almost like insurance, but you know, you also want to have it in place because in business, the unexpected happens 9 times out of 10. The business does fail. A customer is going to be unhappy. You know, there are going to be issues where you are going to have to settle it based on, you know, the agreements and contracts and the employee agreements and whatever you've signed. So there's definitely that need there, but I feel like they've milked it to such an extent, maybe. And you're feeling like that number can come down with technology and sort of with the ability to allow the lawyer to do their job you worry about everything else, and they get a really good, I mean, 30,000 a month, that seems like that's a decent salary for a, 4-year post-grad and 2 years articling.
Yeah, and then they did practice for many years, but I would say
Right.
that's a spectacular living.
Right.
for
What's med
anyone.
school get you? What is a practicing tenured, medical, practitioner, right? A
Yeah, I hear
get.
you. So it just shows that the customer can get a great lawyer for a
Right.
far better price point, and
Right.
the lawyers can make a great living. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
That you need to find a better option for companies so that they don't have to do it themselves, because that seems to be the best option. I would say, you should get a professional to do it, just the same way that most companies get an accountant to do their accounting, certainly at year end. If you have a health issue, you don't operate on yourself, you go to a doctor.
Right.
You should get somebody who knows what they're doing, and then you should take that time and you should focus on your business, and that's going to be a better use of your time. You build your business and you let somebody else whose focus is to work on legal issues do
Right.
that for you. It's going to be much cheaper, and you can do what you should do, which is focus on your business. And then, get somebody who's got the expertise to do your incorporation and do your shareholders agreement,
Right.
and get your contracts in shape, and you'll know that it's been done right.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Steve, sorry. I really appreciate you joining me here today. I'm going to ask one last question. I'm going to do 2 questions, actually. One's just a fun one. So Mustangs or Gales?
Oh, Gales.
Gales?
That's my undergrad.
Okay.
That's my undergrad. So
Okay.
I bleed Queen's tricolor.
You bleed the, what is like maroon, yellow, and what is it? What are the,
Yes, it's gold, red, and blue. Yeah, the tricolor.
is it red? It's not maroon? I feel like it's a
might be wrong.
maroonish color, but
maybe,
yeah.
maybe.
Gold, red, and blue. Interesting. Okay. And then Mustangs, obviously purple and I guess white.
Purple, yeah, purple and white. Yeah.
Purple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So for those who don't know, that's Queens Gales and Western Mustangs. Those are the sports teams. Anyways, so you're a Gales. We were actually out there a couple weeks ago. We went for a drive. I think it was the Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
And we took the kids out on the one of the fields there, the AstroTurf, just kind of like I think it's the rugby field. We were throwing the
Okay.
football around. There's no one
Yeah.
there. It was empty at the Queens campus there.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, Kingston's a great town.
Great little town. Yeah. I haven't been out there in years, but we, took a drive by the old, what do you call it? Jail, the prison,
Yep.
the Kingston Pen. It was
Yep.
sold out though. You couldn't even get in, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Super cool.
Cool. So one last question, one word. If you had to go back, talk to a younger Steve, one word, one piece of advice, one word, what would that one word be?
Persevere.
Persevere. There you go. Keep on keeping on. Cool. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you for jumping on the call here. We should definitely connect. I think we'd love to bring you in as a vendor for some of the issuers going through our platform, because I think you could provide a great service. Maybe even for us. Maybe we might be on the
For sure. 3HL backers, you got
Oh
lots
yeah,
of
well
cool
the
stuff
3HL,
online.
yeah.
Lots of cool stuff.
Lots
going.
of cool stuff happening.
Yeah,
definitely.
we got lawyers who have experience with NHL players for sure. A couple
Oh.
come to mind. One was an agent before. Another guy's worked with some NHLers and other entertainers. So yeah, we've
Yeah.
got great lawyers who come from that world, and that's a very, very cool idea. Love it.
Yeah, awesome. There's some actually, stay tuned, because there's some really cool things happening with that as well. There's a certain broadcaster that's interested in broadcasting it this coming
very cool.
January. So that could spearhead it right back into legitimacy. So there's a lot of talks happening in sort of backdoor talks, but it's some exciting things happening there. So
Right on.
thanks, Steve. Everyone else, this is One Take, powered by Backers. Yet another great episode. Steve Monk, Justin Fox. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Thanks, Steve. Bye.
See you later.
Hey there. Welcome to One Take, powered by Backers.
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
And the millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.